So who should get what stat boosters? So I am in a weird position where I haven't used any of my stat boosters in a new playthrough, and we're almost to the end of the game. I'm on chapter 19. So who should I use my stat boosters on? First, let me see what stat boosters I have so we can figure out what we should do. All right, so we have a Seraph robe, 2 energy drops, 2 spirit dusts, Speedwing, Draco shield, 2 talisman, and boots. Now, who should you use Seraph robe on? Generally, it should be used on your main tank or one of the units that you expect to be getting hit a lot. Now, if you have a unit who can tank a single hit and they're going to be trading damage, they probably shouldn't get it. If you have a unit who's dying consistently because their health is actually pretty low, and assuming you're playing on Maddening, that could be a good target. So funny enough, this character, this Alir in particular, has quite low health, 38 health and defensive values that are quite low. So this would be a good candidate for Seraph robe if I just wanted to improve Alir's survivability. However, now that Alir has dual supports, I can probably get away with avoid tanking. So if I switch my engraving to some kind of a void tank build, I don't even need to worry about health as much. So I could probably just do that and be fine. So that's something I could do. Alternatively, I could use it on Anna, who sees quite a lot of combat and tends to enemy phase a lot. Alir also is a bonder, so Alir might not even need the extra health because of the void from dual support. So bond shield on Anna, both of these don't really need it. So depending on what your team is doing, it might make sense to use it on someone like Chloe, who kind of, goes for random one rounding of enemies. Now she's gonna need sword power. So after this next chapter, she can start getting her sword power, but she could be a decent candidate. Obviously Amber, Jade, or Tamara. These are like my main combat units. Basically anyone who's going to be getting hit a lot or that's main tanking. So using it on Tamara here, who's my main tank, makes a lot of sense. Using it on Jade would make some sense. I'm trying out this build on her. But usually you want to use it on someone who's going to be seeing a lot of combat or someone who is barely getting killed. So like Hortensia tends to be a unit who dies a lot. If she gets hit once, she usually dies, but if you improve her max health, she usually survives. So like right now she's HP plus 7, and she's only at 35 HP, which is barely enough for her to survive. So using it on her is also decent. Now obviously you can just keep her safe with positioning, but it can be a pain to deal with certain enemies and just always having a liability hanging around in positions. Now what else? So strength drops, energy drops. Who do we use these on? These should typically be used on physical hard carries or main tanks that are going to be experiencing a lot of combat. So let's say you have, a Kagetsu, a Marin, a Panette, an Amber, whatever unit you like to use, Lapis, Chloe, physical, it doesn't matter. These can be used on units who are barely failing to one round, or just used on units who you want to get into one rounding thresholds. So you can view this as getting like lance power, sword power, axe power +1 for the cost of an item that's, it's consumable, but you can only get so many of them throughout a playthrough. So in the case of Amber right now that he has lance power 1, he's one rounding a little bit better, but otherwise on his steel lance, his might is decent, but it's not as good as it could be, so he would be a good candidate. Jade, she doesn't really double, so she's not one rounding. She just kind of single hits for low damage. This build actually kind of sucks. Tamara, she would be a good candidate because of all the enemy phasing she does. Chloe, she switched over to magical, so she would not be good. Alir could be good, but Alir's a bonder, so Alir's more of a utility unit. So the units I would be looking at to use the energy drop on would be Amber or Tamara, because both of them double and both of them tend to one round, so they would be in competition for these energy drops. Jade, honestly, she's just too slow. She needs like a completely different build in order to be useful. Now I could run like Silver Great Axe on her, but the big problem with Silver Great Axe is you get hit twice before you hit. So I wouldn't even be thinking about using energy drops on her. So in this particular team comp, it'd be Amber or Tamara. All right, and then what else? Spirit Dust. So Spirit Dust would either go to Chloe or Anna. Anna doesn't seem to be having trouble one rounding right now. She has 41 magic attack, which is decent. She is on Wolf Knight too. She honestly should be on Mage Knight. I just wanted to try her out on Wolf Knight using Killing Edge, and funny enough, it was actually pretty decent. But now that we're in endgame, enemies are going to start having high defense values, so she's like, not going to be able to deal damage. 30 physical attack, hitting against like 27 defense. Those are 9 damage crits. It's not good enough, unfortunately. So the Wolf Knight crit build that I wanted to try out on Anna was kind of a meme, and then the crit build on Chloe with the Wadao is also kind of a meme. So both of those builds failed, and I just switched them over to normal rolls, basically. Now, she really should be on Mage Knight, though. There's no like distinct advantage of Wolf Knight aside from the speed growth. But Mage Knight gets more speed at level 5. At level 5. So let's look at it really quick. Mage Knight. So you lose 1 speed, but then you get Chaos Style, so it's really not that bad. You gain 4 points of damage, but when you double, that's 8 damage. That's a significant, that's like the equivalent of having Sword Power too. So pretty significant. But I would definitely use it on probably Anna here. She's one of my main DPS units. Chloe's like a secondary. She's usually just staff bots and then like cleans up kills. And Anna tends to 1 round, so I would use it on her. I would use Spirit Dust on her. Now you could use it on your utilities. I'm using Ivy as a utility in this run. She's not a hard carry. She's just here just to like help and staff bot. Same thing with Hortensia. So these are like utility staff botters, we would say. These I wouldn't use it on. Now if Ivy is one of your main units, a main combat unit, then yeah, you can use it on her. But that's generally also Pandreo. Pandreo is also a really good candidate for Spirit Dust. He tends to have a little bit lower magic than other mages, but he's really good build and speed. So he tends to need a little bit of damage fixing to 1 round, but not much. So giving him a Spirit Dust or 2 is a good investment. Now obviously, this is based on my team comp. So I'm just like letting you know the decisions I would make as to how to distribute these items. So I'd probably give it to Anna because she is like my main combat unit, especially when bonded shielding. So that's what I'm thinking. Pandreo, he's kind of like a secondary staff bot that kind of helps. Same thing with Ivy and Hortensia. So I wouldn't dump it on my like utilities. Like I consider these 4 down here utility units. And obviously Sidal, so I have like 5 utilities. Utilities are units that just like help your team but don't necessarily kill. Or if they do deal damage, they don't really 1 round, and their builds aren't really geared towards 1 rounding due to lack of resources, not because the units are bad at 1 rounding. All right, and then for for the other items. So who to use Speedwings on? This can be tricky. It depends on what the build is, what the unit is. So Speedwings, in this particular case, most of my units are very fast. So Alir, right now, 31 speed, that's very fast. That's pretty fast. And also, if I get speed +5, I'm 33 speed. That's pretty fast. I'm on chapter 19. I still have a bunch of paralogs to do. I'll probably level up a bit, probably be like 36 to 37 speed by the time I do chapter 19 and 20. That's fast enough to double most things in the game. So that's already pretty fast. Chloe, she's weighed down a little bit, but she's not like a top unit on my team. If I want to build her up, I'd have to get her speed +5 and then sword power like 3, which is 3k SP. Now she's already sitting on 1k SP, so if I do a bunch of paralogs, I could probably do that. But she's not like a priority on my team. She's more of like secondary damage. Anna getting the Speedwing, that would be a decent investment. She's already quite fast. The 11 sword does slow her down a bit, but because she's my main bonded shield unit, it does make sense to use it on her. Amber, he has Lin and speed +3. He's already fast enough that once he starts speed taking, he's fine. So he doesn't necessarily need the Speedwing. He actually is the one that got it. He one-rounded the one thing with Mulajir because his strength is decent. But he has Speed Taker, speed +5 from Lin, so he gets the 36 speed as the fight goes on, so he doesn't really need it. Jade, she's never going to double, so there's no point in giving it to her. Tamara could use it. Her speed is already quite high. Her main weapon doesn't weigh her down, and she's also on Ike. So if I wanted to improve her doubling, I could give it to her, and then the rest of the utilities I wouldn't give it to. So the main people who would want it, probably Anna, maybe Tamara. This unit, the Lear build, does kill, but mostly is bonded shielding for most of the fight, and then when not bonded shielding, Alir then finally attacks. So I would want to use it on someone who's attacking a lot. And it would either be Anna or Tamara, because Amber's speed is already fine. So if like Tamara was on Lin, for example, I would consider using it on Amber. So generally it's going to go to your main hard carry. So in this case, I'll use it on Anna. Alright, the other ones. Draco Shield. So who... We'll do Draco Shield and Talisman at the same time. Alright, so who should get a Draco Shield? This one is a little bit more straightforward than some of the others. Who's getting hit a lot and needs more physical tanking? It's really that simple. So Anna's usually bonded, so she usually doesn't need the tank. Amber gets high avoid from running Lynn, but can get hit, so he would be a candidate. Jade, if I want to invest more in her, get her Gentility and Resolve Plus, which is something I'm considering doing for her build. Honestly, her problem is that she doesn't double. If she doubled, Gentility Plus would be so good, because then she'd be dealing plus damage per combat. But because she doesn't double, that's assuming that you engage your Erica unit or switch over to Bravery. But because she doesn't double, it'd only be +5, which is not nearly as good. So it's hard to say. And also, like, the Resolve, because she gets doubled, Resolve and Gentility aren't as effective. Now it is reducing, so like let's say she gets hit for 10 twice, right? So 20 damage. Base Gentility reduces that by 6, putting it at 14, which is good, because she tends to take like 20 to 30 damage a combat. But if she just simply didn't get doubled, she would be having the damage anyways. So if she had Gentility and Resolve while being fast, like on a Kagetsu, Tamara, Amber, like pretty much anything that's remotely fast. Well, actually Amber's not fast, but if she was a faster class or faster unit, she'd be taking significantly less damage, and she'd also be dealing more damage because of the doubling. So honestly, like, you could use it on her, especially if she's an Ike tank. In that situation, it makes sense. But in this team comp, this is kind of like a mid unit that's probably not going to pop off. I think the build just failed. Now, she's on Leaf temporarily. I'm going to put her on something better long term. I might even try Marth on her. The speed is kind of wasted on her, but she would get strength and the extra attack when engaged, so maybe it works out. I don't know. I doubt it. We'll try to figure out something for her. But I would probably use the defense on Amber or Tamara, because both of these tend to get hit. This tends to dodge tank. Chloe doesn't get enough combats to justify it, but probably one of these. And for the talismans, I'd probably just use them on Tamara. Now Amber, he does get res plus. Now he's not main tanking, so honestly it should probably go to Tamara in this case, because she's an off tank main tank, if that makes sense. So like Anna, bonded shield is basically the primary main tank, and then Tamara using, you know, Ike with the this crit build is the actual main tank. Well, I'm sorry, like she's self tanks. Let me clarify. She's a self tank and is like a duo tank. So she's tanking off of bonded, whereas she's tanking off of Ike and other things. So she would probably want the stat boosters. Now she's been tanking fine without them. And also I have Pure Water on here to boost her res up even more. But she's been tanking fine without them. But if I add them in, she'll tank even better. So generally you're going to use it on whoever your tank is, whether it be Jade, Louis, Tamara, Bune, if you feel like cooking up something interesting. There's Kagetsu tanks. There's all these different tank builds. All right, then finally the boots. Oh yeah, for dex books, doesn't really matter. Whoever you want to improve the accuracy of, that's a main combat unit, or if you want to improve their rates of triggering passives, like Void Grasp, Sandstorm, and so on. For boots, so in this particular team, boots are good on main carries, like hard carries, that you want to improve the mobility of so that they can kind of move around better. Now, that's obvious, but I feel like in Engage, boots almost don't even matter that much, because usually your entire team is together, and if they're not, there's a good reason for that. So like, let's say you send like some tank to go fight 5 enemies they can easily handle, and then the rest of your forces are like pushing, you know, the boss or whatever. That's a thing you can do. And boots generally just are good on units like flyers, so that they can move in between groups. So if you ever split your forces up, that's really the advantage, because there isn't Kanto in this game, so like getting extra move doesn't really matter as much. Now it can be useful, like don't get me wrong, it is useful, but if you're not warp skipping maps or playing really fast, it almost doesn't even matter to have them, so you can just use it on whoever you want, to be honest. Some people like to use it on their dancer, some people like to use it on their main combat units, so maybe like Amber or Tamara would get it in this case. Anna could get it, but she's basically tied to a Leer. Now she can off tank like a combat or two, Like she can tank like 1 or 2 combats before she dies, but her going off on her own is a bad idea. And even if I was to send Tamara off on her own, usually when I tank, I position like 3 to 4 move in front of my team to absorb some incoming enemies. So having boots doesn't really matter. Honestly, I don't consider it to be a super useful item. Maybe use it on Sadal here. Now I could throw him on Sigurd too. Right now Ivy has Sigurd. Sadal Sigurd is pretty good. He already has Canter unlocked though, but you can get Canter plus for free, you get the extra move, then when he engages, he gets super move. So that's like a good way of using Sigurd if you don't have a build for Sigurd in mind. But boots probably would go on Sadal in this case. Because this team comp is geared around tanking. And Amber could kind of be useful here. Like if I use boots on him so he can move in between to attack. And it would be good to use boots on so she can move in between. So like in between bonded or if I just need the range. So usually used on like your main combat unit. In this case, Anna, which is my primary combat unit. Anna is one of the best primary combat units in the game because every time she gets a kill, she rolls to make you money. And right now she has a 26% chance to give me 500 gold and she's been constantly making me money. So if you make her your hard carry, like your main combat unit, you will make tens of thousands of gold in the playthrough. I average like 3 to 5k a map. It's super dumb. And she doesn't even have, also once I do Byleth Paralog, she'll be plus 12 luck, so she'll be 6 more, plus 6 more from what she's at right now. She's also the best candidate for Goddess Icon, so if you do Sigurd Paralog, there's that free Goddess Icon, use that on Anna if you're running her. She's basically the best unit for simultaneously making money and also being a really good combat unit, and that's why I put her in S tier. Pandreo typically has better combat, but he does have lower magic. Now you can't tell because they're on different classes, but let's just put her on Sage to like show. She's also been not leveling on Sage this whole time. She's been leveling on Wolf Knight, but she's still 50% magic growth. All right, so on Sage she has 23 magic, having not leveled up with Sage's plus 30% magic growth, versus Pandreo's 21 magic on Sage. So to put that into perspective, if she would have been put on Sage immediately and leveled up in Sage, she would be plus 3 more magic per 10 level ups. So she'd have way higher magic than him. He has better build, and generally his speed is really good. Let me see what her speed would be. Her speed is good too though. She just has lower build than him. That's like the only difference. Let's see, what's her speed here? Oh, she's quite fast, actually. 25 speed. That's pretty fast. Now, she is 20% more speed growth on Wolf Knight, so that's changing things too. But she'd probably be around Pandreo's speed by this point. She's been on Wolf Knight for, I think, just 12 level ups. Or no, 20 level ups. Okay, so she's been plus 4 speed from Wolf Knight. So she'd probably be at his speed, to be honest. She'd basically be at his speed. So, but Anna Sage isn't really the build for her. It's usually Mage Knight anyways. Mage Knight has significantly better speed. So 27, so it's -1 speed of Wolf Knight. So 21, so she has his magic but with more speed on on Mage Knight. Then you get plus 3 speed from Chaos Style. Now he can also go Mage Knight, but then he loses magic. So, but generally speaking, she has more magic than him. He has slightly higher speed because of his build, because their speed is usually kind of similar. So that's the way to look at them. But she makes you tons of money and he doesn't, so he can be a utility. She should be a main unit if you're going to use her. All right, so overall for stat boosters, generally you're going to be using it on your main combat units. You're going to be using stat boosters on your main combat units. Stat boosters are not created equally. Like obviously Goddess Icon is not nearly as impactful as like a Speedwing or a Strength Drop or Spirit Dust. And boots, it really depends on your playstyle, what you're trying to do. You could use it on your dancer, you could use it on a main combat unit, depends on what kind of units you have too. So if you have like an Ivy hard carry, it can be very useful to use it on her so that she can move in between or find kills or chase enemies or whatever you need her to do. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Just a quick guide, 20 minutes, just a quick guide on which units I would use stat boosters on using this team as an example. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Also, we have a stream. I stream on this channel Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern, so definitely watch out for that. I'm about to be streaming Radiant Dawn, Chat Sabotage, which is, you know, kind of a chaotic, fun thing. We play on the highest setting. Chat gets to vote on 2 units that I have to use, and they're not allowed to die. Chat gets to vote on a unit to kill, and then also people can super chat for units to kill and for units to force deploy that are protected. And you can also force me to drop items and stuff like this. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for checking us out. Peace.